This method seems to work for a lot of people. It works for me greatly. If you don't have time or you can't be babysitting your kefir 24 hours a day, you need options so that you can keep on kefiring. So, do colder temperatures shock the grains? No, it does not. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This kefir right here, I had it setting out. After I put the milk in it, I had it sitting for about 1 to 2 hours, and then I put it in the refrigerator. It's been in the refrigerator about 16 to 18 hours. Now look at how that kefir's dying. Doesn't look like it's working. Oh, then why is it separated? Why is it making whey? I haven't disturbed them since probably last night, so I should have disturbed them this morning so that I didn't get a separation. Typically right now, earlier, I'll stir it up to do that, and then very shortly more of that milk will get eaten up, and I'll go ahead and strain it. These were only fermented at room temperature for less than 2 hours. I only got 2 teaspoons of grains originally. These don't look like they've been stressed out too much. I got a whole bunch of these, and they're growing very nicely. Refrigerator every day. 2 teaspoons, and I have more, and I spilt half of them at one point. As you can see how close they are to the edge of my table. Whoop! Spilt one. Lost half the grains already. Plus, I'm trying to slow them down by putting them in the refrigerator because you only need so much milk per day. You grow more grains, your whole situation is going to get thrown off unless you add in more milk to maintain the ratio that you're used to if you're leaving it on the counter like these homemakers do. So there's only so much milk that you can use in a day and that you want to use in a day. So in order to control that, you basically have to control the other factors. I want so much milk that I'm making a day. I'm not going to make a gallon of kefir per day. I mean, come on. I'm not going to do that. So I only need my 24 ounces of kefir per day. So I'm doing a set amount of milk, basically. Then you will either have to adjust your grain ratio, adjust your timing, adjust your temperatures, so that you can get a finished kefir for the amount of milk that you want. If you're going to leave it out on the counter, doing it then you need to keep pulling out grains from your kefir, or your milk is going to be done way before you're ready if you're leaving it on the counter. That's why you get so much separation, and it's hard to figure out what's going on when you're leaving it on the counter, because every day your grains are growing and your ratio is increasing, so you need less time every day, slightly less time before your kefir reaches that separation point again. This is a way to control all of that and try to rein it in so that I can get things done the way that I need them to be done. Now, if your kefir is separating to whey, the kefir is done. It doesn't matter if it was 1 hour or 24 hours. If I can reach a separation in the milk to whey within 1 hour, that's no different than someone I left it out in 24 hours with a tiny little bit of grains in there, except for you might have more fermented milk if you don't have many grains. So, yeah, no problems here. 2 teaspoons, and these have grown just fine. Growing just fine. Plenty of big grains coming in. I can increase the growth if I want to leave them out on the counter more often and pull the milk quicker and put another batch in. Each cycle is a growth cycle, but I have so many, I'm not trying to grow too fast. I will eat some of them, but yeah, that's what it's about. I'm not going to use a gallon of milk for this many grains. University studies show that more grains in the milk produces more of all the cofactors that you're looking for. More kefirin, more of all the other things that are anti-cancer, good for your stomach and all of that. More grains produces more. I mean, what would you think? You think one tiny grain, or say you're putting this much in your milk and fermenting it. Okay, that much kefir, do you think that's going to produce more kefir byproducts than that many grains in the same amount of milk? Just think about it. No, it's not. More grains is more power, more health benefits. If you like doing it the way that you're doing it, that's fine. But for many people, that doesn't work. That is a true testament by the thousands and millions of people that have tried kefir and quit because they had problems and didn't understand what they were doing. So rather than just getting lucky, let's actually get success by understanding the entire process and what's going on so that you can make the necessary adjustments over time to keep your kefir in check and producing what you want. Ask any questions that you have. I will try to answer everyone's questions. I try to help people out as much as possible. Much of the information is in my videos over the years. You know, it's every time I try to share more information, there's just a lot to it. Here are the ones out of the container that I separated a lot of the smaller ones into. And you can see those tiny ones have grown up. Now my smallest ones are this big. Before I had a whole bunch of the tiny ones. They're getting up to larger sizes. And those have been refrigerated. They're only out for a short time. Once they get warm, they start to eat fast and grow. These used to be tiny. And it's only been a short time here, maybe a month, since I separated out a bunch of these small ones. And they've grown considerably in size. There is no shocking of the grains when you put in cold milk. They just need a little bit of warmth and air regularly to keep the yeast going healthy mainly. These grains are growing fine. Any faster and I'd be out of control. I'd just be eating more and having to get rid of them. Or use more milk, which I'm not really going to use a lot more milk. Like I said, I'm getting raw milk. I only have about 2 to 3 gallons per week I'm dealing with, and I'm only drinking so much per day. It's just me. If you want to make more, you can make more. You can use this same amount of grains to make twice as much kefir if you want. You're going to have a lower ratio, so it's going to need more time out. Compared to me, you may be only looking at 4 hours out on the counter if you're using double the amount of milk. Or 5 hours. It's very easy to figure that out. You just leave it out, track it, see what happens. And of course, your temperature changes are going to change that. So just remember, the past predicts the future. You have to remember what's happening so that you know how to adjust and how to deal with everyday occurrences and what happens when you're kefiring through a lifetime. So this is just out of that small container. I mean, that's a lot of grains. A 50% ratio. And it's basically because it gets it done really fast for me. It does change the flavor a little bit. I do like it more foamy. I like a lot of carbonation. And if you were to let this sit out on the counter after I strained it out with this high of a grain ratio, it would be completely second fermented and separated away within probably an hour or less, possibly. Yeah, just ask any questions you guys got. I will answer them. And then also a lot of my older videos explain into a lot of these topics. So take a look at those. You will learn something every video, I assure you. Might get sick of listening to me over and over again. But if you just take it out in chunks, I've only got 30 videos. So within a few hours, you can gain a vast amount of knowledge. But you will have to put it into practice before you really start to understand what I'm talking about and what's happening. So just remember, it's not a big deal to change what you're doing in the kefir. It's not going to hurt your grains. If you try this one time and you have a little bit of grains and you've been putting them in a lot of milk, just reduce your milk down and give it a try. If things are, if things are going too fast for you, whatever, it's not a big deal. You can switch back to doing it the other way you were doing it the next day and go back to that. It's a matter of what you like, what you got to deal with, how much time you got to deal with it, and how you like the finished product of your kefir, also what kind of milks you're using. So good luck, guys. Let me know if you have any questions, and then reference back to some of my older videos that will probably be helpful to you. So I'm going to review this. People say that cold damages the grains, blah, blah, blah. Okay, first, have they ever tried it? Or are they just parroting what they heard? I mean, do you think it's always warm in the Caucasus Mountains of Russia back 500 years ago? They were sheep herders that lived in tents, basically. They didn't have no central heating. Kefir came to the modern world through Russia. What they did back in the day was, as recorded, they hung it in the doorways. Do you think it wasn't drafty by those doors in the 1700s? I don't know, but my year 2000 door, if I put something by the door, it gets really cold in the winter. And that's why they put it out in the sun to warm it up, because it was cold. So I am replicating the methods of the ancients as much as I can. This method seems to work for a lot of people. It works for me greatly. If you don't have time or you can't be babysitting your kefir 24 hours a day, you need options so that you can keep on kefiring. And also, so you guys know, it seems that only about 30% of my viewers are from the USA. So what's that say? I mean, outside of your bubble around here, the rest of the world is living their lives and doing things much differently, and they don't seem to have, they seem to be very interested in what I'm doing here. Because a lot of those climates are extremely warm, like people in India, you know, it's very hot there. The Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, people around the world, people in Germany, Netherlands, a lot of other people are interested in this. Okay, so do I need to do some type of comparison here to this regular way that, you know, like the Donna Shedwick tell you how to do it, and what you get in your directions, leave it out for 24 to 36 hours. That's only going to work for 3 to 4 weeks. And then you're going to start having problems and not understand what the hell you're doing, because then people are telling you, oh, leave it out for 24 to 36 hours. That is not an answer. It gives you no help. You're lost. You're hoping for luck. So do I need to compare it? No. I already did what everyone else does, and it didn't work for me. I do what I'm doing here, and it works. You can see from the start when I got my latest set of grains, just because I had things going on in life. I had to leave for 2 months. I had a lot of issues, loss in the family, and other major problems. I did quit doing kefir for a while. I was just doing raw milk and fermenting raw milk. You know, so you can see my growth here from getting the 2 teaspoons that I posted in that video about 4 months ago to what I've got today. So you can see how my grains are doing. I've had continued growth from the beginning. My grains are living proof that my method works and that what I'm doing does not hurt the grains. I've had other ideas that have gone worldwide. If you guys are interested in those, I can share that information with you. I use raw milk, which is very rare in the USA. Raw milk is not common. Making kefir with raw milk is not common, and you're not exactly going to know what's going on if you've never made kefir out of raw milk. But in 70% of the rest of the world, they are using raw milk. And I think that's why like 70% of my views come from outside the United States. Some recent questions were like how do you make larger grains, plump grains? So as the grains grow, they enlarge or propagate. So straining them and roughing them up can break little pieces off that will start to grow on their own, kind of like a worm, like an earthworm. It will keep growing back. As you remove pieces, it'll grow a new worm. So if you handle them more gently and don't break them up, they will get bigger. Also, having a lot of small grains with large grains can cause your milk to ferment faster in the grain mass because there's more surface area, and it can separate away because you have all that grain mass there. So if you want to grow larger grains, you can remove the smaller grains so that the larger grains get more food. It's kind of like a fish tank. If you have a ton of small fish and 2 large fish, the hundreds of small fish will eat all the food that could have been eaten by the big fish so that they can grow bigger. So I separate a lot of the small ones into another container, or eat the small ones up and let the big ones keep growing. So do colder temperatures shock the grains? No, it does not. It simply slows down the growth rate and fermentation cycle. You can see these grains that I grew from day 1 with my method, and see how much they've grown and how they ferment the milk very quickly. There's no trickery going on. This is just reality. Oh, and this is for the Karens. Here's how bad my kefir turned out after only having it on the counter for like an hour. You can see the bulk mass right there. You can see the thickness right there. There's an edge, a thick edge. Ah! And that even went a little too long, because I did leave it sitting out for a minute. With an extremely high 50% grain ratio. Much higher. The flavor is going to be one way right now, and it will be a little bit different if I put it in the refrigerator. If you want, you can let it sit. It'll start to separate whey, and then you'll have a really thick kefir on top. You could just drink some of that off, or if you have an appropriate container, you can drain out the whey. But yeah, this is a nice kefir. Nothing wrong with that. 1 to 2 hour kefir. Same thing. Enjoy your kefir and happy kefiring. So thanks for watching.